Welcome to Ignite Studios. I'm Jeremy Chapman.
I'm Dustin Ingalls.
So today we have a really good show in store. We're going to talk about Windows 10 enterprise features. So you've seen a lot about Windows 10 lately in press. There was a build conference last week, but we're going to drill in on the actual enterprise aspects of that with Dustin here, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're going to talk about things like productivity, what that means in the enterprise, devices, security, and manageability. We might even show a demo, hopefully that you guys haven't seen along the way, but let's get started. Let's talk about what's new in Windows 10.
Sounds good. So,
Go ahead.
okay, so we can kind of focus in four main areas, and the first is all around productivity. Now, I'm sure if you saw the keynote this morning, you heard about this. It's really about how can we maximize productivity for existing environments while also taking advantage of the incredible new innovations in hardware and capabilities. So, starting with being more productive, if you've been able to see the Start menu yet, the Start menu has just been completely redesigned to be super familiar to people who use Windows 7. So if you're used to Windows 7 with that mouse and keyboard, it's a super familiar experience. It doesn't require any additional training. But the Start menu, as you look over to the right, also has the best elements of Windows 8. So you have things like live tiles. It's fully customizable. But then you have this feature we call Continuum. And Continuum's great because it makes it easy for people to move from that mouse and keyboard experience to a full touch-based experience. And again, if you saw it in the keynote this morning, I can have a two-in-one device, a device that's sitting in a docking station, and I can just get started, and it works just like a Windows 7 PC, whether I'm in Windows Universal Apps or whether I'm in my friendly Win32 apps. I have a Start menu that's very familiar to me. All the windows work. Everything works the way you'd expect. But then, if I switch to tablet mode, the system will automatically switch to a mode that's optimized for touch. So the Start screen goes to a full screen experience, takes advantage of all that real estate, and all my apps automatically go to full immersive experiences, no more windows. And as I switch back and forth between those experiences, the system will automatically take me back to where I was. So if I plug it back into the dock, all my windows snap back to the windowed state they were previously in. I get back to the Start menu the way I'd expect on a mouse and keyboard devices. Now, I mentioned Universal Apps briefly. The next thing that's great about Windows 10 and productivity is I can write one app, a developer has one experience, one set of code, and it'll run across all the different Windows device experiences, from phone to PC and tablet, even to form factors like HoloLens. It's the same development environment, it's the same experience. This was another great thing from the keynote this morning where you can see, it showed an app on the phone and then showed the app expanded on a full device screen, and when the app is maximized you get to see all the experiences, but as you shrink the app it automatically adapts to the space until you get to something that's a small screen, and it looked exactly like the phone because it's the same code behind. So lastly, on Windows 10 devices, you'll have new universal apps from Microsoft, including Office, which will give you that same familiar experience. If you're using Outlook on a phone, if you're using Outlook on a tablet, if you're using Outlook on a classic desktop with a monitor, it'll look exactly the same across all those experiences because it's a Windows Universal app. It's the same code, it runs the same familiar experience across all those different platforms. So, if you're an enterprise, you upgrade in place on a Windows 7 device, you still have that super familiar mouse and keyboard experience, but as you begin to transition to new devices with new capabilities, touch, two-in-ones, all those different experiences, you get to take advantage of all those new capabilities in Windows 10.
And even beyond that, we've also done a lot of work in terms of other device types as well, right? If you think about like this device, that's next generation Surface Hub, HoloLens, all these other things that we can do as well, right?
Exactly. So, innovative devices for your business. One of the fun things about the capabilities of Windows 10 is they've really unleashed the creativity of hardware manufacturers. We have all these new devices. I've been at Microsoft 20 years, and if you look at PCs even from 6, 7, 8 years ago, they all kind of looked the same way. They didn't have anything distinctive. They didn't have anything exciting. But you look at today's devices, even in classic form factors like tablets and laptops, you're seeing amazing new capabilities, two-in-ones, coming with special peripherals, special devices, things that make them more fun, more engaging, and more productive to use. But the Universal App Platform of Windows 10 also unleashes completely new device types, such as Surface Hub, which is very, very productive and impressive for collaboration and meetings, but also devices like HoloLens and holographic computing, which completely change the possibilities for business productivity.
So beyond that, your sweet spot, you lead the teams of security and the feature set around that. I know that we've done a ton of work. I know everybody here is interested. What's the security story around Windows 10?
Yeah, as Jeremy mentioned, I work on the security team, so this is the part I could talk about for 3 hours, only he's not going to let me. But so we really focus on 3 areas in security: protecting your identity, protecting the data, and really protecting the platform, malware resistance. In identity, everybody's been experiencing the problem with passwords, right? I mean, passwords have evolved. We've talked about the problems for years. There have been solutions to strong authentication for a long time, but they're really hard to use. They're really complicated, they add friction, and we all know your users, when you add friction in the name of security, they avoid it in the most creative of ways. The other problem we're facing is the cyber threat environment has completely changed. It used to be you could just make people choose a really strong password, change it every so often, and you'd be protected from hash attacks and GPU rig attacks. But now today, it's all phishing and server-side breach. It doesn't matter if you have a 250-character password in Klingon, it's still going to get owned because it gets lost through phishing or it gets lost through server-side breach. So in Windows 10, we have a new technology called Microsoft Passport. And what Microsoft Passport does is it effectively makes your PC into your own smart card. So it uses the same technology that IT is familiar with smart cards, asymmetric hardware-bound keys, and brings that as a usable replacement for passwords. But then we bring Windows Hello. And Windows Hello is what takes that additional security and makes it super engaging and super fun. Instead of with a smart card, entering a PIN, things like that, which you can still do on any device. If you have a device that's capable of Windows Hello, then it's a fun, engaging experience with animation and things that make it fun and easy for users. So instead of having to remember this really complex password that users end up writing on a sticky and putting under their keyboard anyways, you can just use your face, you can use your iris, and you can use your finger. It's that easy to solve the password problem.
And I think beyond authentication, we talked about services, and if you think about Azure or Office 365, we do a lot in terms of policy management to detect things that might need to be locked down from a permission standpoint, or things that need to be encrypted or RMS protected. But I know at the platform level, you're doing a bunch of stuff to make sure Windows at the platform level can secure apps from not running and can secure files themselves, so that only things that you need running on that machine are actually there.
Absolutely. So there's 2 more areas to talk about. One, protecting your data. We have a new feature, not yet final named, but we call it Enterprise Data Protection. What Enterprise Data Protection does is it puts IT in complete control of business data, even when it's a personal device, bring your own device, where other personal data exists. So instead of completely, previously you only had 2 choices. You have no control over the data, or you completely take over the user experience. With Enterprise Data Protection, we enlighten the platform so the platform can support protecting IT data, leaving the user's personal data alone, but doing it in a way that is seamless to the user and doesn't require the apps to be enlightened. Finally, backing this all up with device security, we have probably the biggest step forward in the history of Windows with respect to keeping malware off the platform, and that's something we call Device Guard. And Device Guard is a set of capabilities that starts with building on what we did in Windows 8 and 8.1. We made a big step to hardware-based security. In Windows 10, we make a big step to hypervisor-based security. So on Device Guard-ready PCs, we'll have the hypervisor running under the main operating system, and we have a very tiny operating system off to the side, it's Windows, we call Virtual Secure Mode. And we take some of the most sensitive, secure parts of Windows, we move those over into Virtual Secure Mode. Things like the Local Security Authority. Those of you that have heard of pass the hash attacks know that that's an attack against the Local Security Authority. We move that over to VSM. We move kernel mode code integrity over to VSM. That means those functions and the secrets within are completely safe, even with full and complete kernel mode compromise of the main OS. That's what gives us unparalleled security. And then on top of that, finally, we have user mode code integrity, which allows IT to say, don't run anything on this device except stuff that I sign and approve. And if you're not an enterprise that has PKI in your environment, if you're not used to signing your apps, we'll stand up a service. We will generate your own private key for your enterprise. We'll sign your apps for you. We'll make it super easy. But if you're an enterprise that has experience with this, hey, I'd rather generate my own key, hey, I'd rather sign my own stuff, we'll give you the tools for that as well.
And there's even more coming in terms of management. So for example, things like Azure AD domain join that you can do with the device that will help you actually on the Office or other cloud services side to authenticate into things more easily. We're doing other things around the management space as well, right, in terms of MDM support into the actual platform itself, right?
Absolutely, and this is an area we call manage for continuous innovation. The fact is, we want to give you options, but we also want to make things much, much easier. We've gotten a lot of feedback in this area. Look, I want to manage things with a single pane of glass. I want to be able to manage my estate, manage my devices a single way. But the other thing is, in IT, I'm tired of rip and replace. I'm tired of re-imaging. So with Windows 10, we put an enormous amount of work into the platform so you can just upgrade the platform. No more of the big re-image, just you can simply upgrade the platform. So you can use any of your existing tools for imaging, any of your existing tools for update, those will all work. But also we have these new processes. Today we announced Windows Update for Business. So for free, you can use the power of Windows Update to still update your users on a continual basis without having to do all of that specific patch management and scheduling. It does it all for you. The important thing is we're able to match the ability for you to control what's going on with the ability to bring continuous innovation to users. So, we talked about with consumers are always current. They always have the full batch of features, security patches, and everything. But in business, we'll give you the ability to say, look, I want to be a fast follower. So let the 700 million or so users run it for up to 4 months, and then I can bring it into my estate. So I can take advantage of being on the most current features, and most importantly, the most recent security capabilities, but take away a lot of the risk by saying, hey, let's watch 700 people run it for 4 months first, and then I can bring it into my environment. Huge step forward in terms of the ability to manage Windows with any technology you choose. And I just want to end with that includes MDM. So if you're used to managing some of your devices with MDM, you can now manage all of our devices with MDM. You can still use group policy on classic Windows, all that stuff, but if you want to use MDM, it's in the phone, PC, tablet, all of that stuff. It's all up to you, it's your choice.
So all this stuff, we've shown a lot of it today in the main keynote. We've shown a lot of Windows 10 features in the last week and a half. So we didn't do all the user demos, but I know you've got a demo around enterprise data protection to show us, really even on this machine, driving the PPI, to show us how that works.
I talked about enterprise data protection. Remember, this is about making it easy for enterprises, easy for the user. If I want to turn on enterprise data protection, all I have to do is send down a policy that says, hey, turn it on. Hey, these network locations constitute business data, so automatically encrypt data as it comes onto the device. Don't have to tell the apps, don't have to tell the user, it's all automatic. And then the last thing is IT gets to say, hey, only these apps can access business data. So it allows you to control, this is the list of apps I approve, but these apps can't access business data. So as you can see here, I have a list of, here's my documents folder. And this is my personal device. Well, I wish this was my personal device, but you can see I have a mix of data here that is unprotected and then data that's protected. So I could have something here like my kid's first day at school on the school bus sitting right next to business data. Anything here that says encrypted to Microsoft.com means IT is in full control. Anytime they want to revoke access to those files, they can revoke it immediately, but it won't take away any of the data that's protected to me. So now if I look at, so here's something I'm doing in Word. Now, in this particular case, IT has approved Word as a business application, and right now I'm looking at business data. Now, if I were to go save it as something else, I'll just save it in the document folder, and we'll just call it draft. And now when I go back here, you'll see, it should be at the bottom, there's the draft. It automatically protected it. The user didn't have to do anything. I knew I was working in business data, I was working in a business app, it happens automatically. But now, let's go here and say, let's just take something like this that might be important. All right, I love doing this with touch. Here, let me do it.
Nope.
You want to?
I can try.
Go ahead.
There we go. Oh, there we go. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to copy this data, and I'm going to decide, hey, wow, this is interesting insider information. So I'm going to go over here to Twitter, and I think it might be a great time to do a new tweet. So let me see if I can paste this in here. Okay, now this is really important. One last thing. So you can set a policy that says, IT can say, look, I don't trust the user at all. Don't ever allow them to unprotect data. Or you can say, hey, you know, I trust my users. Sometimes they have a legitimate reason to unprotect data, so let's warn them. Hey, you're about to take data that's business data and paste it in an unapproved app. Do you want to do this? Because if you do, it's going to be audited. The system collects all the information about what you just did and sends it up. So in this particular case, I'm going to say, well, I don't want to get fired because I know that's going to get audited. So I'm not going to do that. Now, I talked briefly about how I can define a list of network sites. I can even go here. In this particular case, I can choose something like this, Team Overview, and I can say, hey, I want to download a copy of this. So I'll say download a copy, and I'll make sure that it's going to my Documents folder so it's easy to see. We'll just save it. Contoso Team Overview, save. And now, now that it's completed, we'll go back to the folder, and you can see there's the Contoso Team Overview. It's automatically protected. So I could go on with this demo and on and on and on because there's so many different features, but the important thing to learn here is this is effortless for the user. It's combining those two experiences into one. IT still has complete control over the data, but the user doesn't have to mess with moving from experience to experience, from work to personal. And apps don't have to be modified. Because we've enlightened the operating system to do this on behalf of the user, on behalf of the apps, you don't even have to modify apps to take advantage of enterprise data protection.
Very cool. So this is enterprise data protection. Of course, all of these and all the stuff that you saw in the keynote are part of Windows 10. If you haven't downloaded and started trying and testing, that's something that you should all be doing in terms of just being able to evaluate the product and give us your feedback. Also, to follow information on Windows 10 and the updates, the Windows 10 team blog is a great place. And you actually did a session, or the Windows team did a session earlier today with Jim Alcove and some others around the enterprise features for Windows 10. So if you're watching this from home, catch that at 75 minutes, a bit more in depth, a bit more demonstrations and to go along with this. But hopefully these are things that you haven't seen in the keynote and some of the other end user demo areas, really showing how much more secure Windows 10 is compared to the predecessors. So thanks for joining us today, Dustin, and thank you all, and goodbye for now.
Thanks, Len.